Hi, this is Dr. Bosch, and I thought I would take a few moments to go over the inner ear anatomy. The middle ear and external ear areas are fairly straightforward, but sometimes students get a little confused about what's going on with the inner ear. So just as some background information, there are three parts to the inner ear. There's the cochlea, that's the one we hear with, that's when it looks sort of like a snail. And then the vestibules are in the middle, and the semicircular canals. The semicircular canals and vestibule have to do with our sense of balance or equilibrium. The cochlea is for hearing. Now, one reason that students sometimes get confused about the inner ear are all these layers. Let's take a look at that. So the three sections of the middle ear, the cochlea, the vestibule, and the semicircular canals, all have a bony outside and then a layer of fluid called the perilymph, and then a membranous layer, and then endolymph in the middle. So it doesn't matter if you're looking here in the semicircular canal or down the vestibule or out in the cochlea. When you look from the outside to the inside, it will have these three layers. So let's talk about the cochlea first. That's our organ of hearing. So this spiral, snail-shaped structure is called the cochlea. And the cochlea takes vibrations from the middle ear. And if you remember the three small bones in your middle ear, the three ossicles, the very last one is called stapes. And that one knocks on a section of the cochlea called the oval window and the round window. They got their names because they're a membrane that kind of has that shape. One's more oval, one's more round. What that does is cause the fluid inside the cochlea to vibrate. And there are two areas of fluid. One's called the scala vestibuli, one's called the scala tympani, and they both contain perilymph. That's the fluid inside. Between them lies the cochlear duct, and that's kind of in the middle, so that actually has the endolymph. Now, if you're confused at this moment, that's okay. I'm just giving you the background. If we look at these layers in cross-section, it might be easier to understand. This is going to be one of the drawings you're going to do in the lab. And what we're looking at is just one turn in that snail-shaped cochlear organ. So there's something like this where we're looking at it, and another one over here, and another one down there, because it spirals around and around. So here's the scala vestibuli with its perilymph. Here's the scala tympani with its perilymph. And in between is the cochlear duct, which has the endolymph. Now, one way that this area is better looked at is to look for this vestibular membrane. That membrane really separates out the scala vestibuli from the cochlear duct. Now, here's the thing to remember. We're not hearing in here or in here, in either the scala. These are vibrating areas of fluid, but what they cause to happen is vibration in the middle here. This is called the organ of Corti, and this is where we actually hear. This is where the signal is sent to the brain through the cranial nerve. So what happens is that perilymph, remember, is vibrating because the stapes knocked on the round window and the oval window, and that vibration is transferred to the endolymph of the cochlear duct. The vibrations of the endolymph are picked up by the organ of Corti. Now here's yet another role of calcium in your body. So many different functions for calcium. But the vibrations in your inner ear bend hairs in the organ of Corti, which causes an influx of calcium ions, which releases a neurotransmitter, and that stimulates the sensory neuron. And of course, the actual neuron is your vestibulocochlear cranial nerve. That's what gets stimulated. It used to be called the auditory nerve, but they didn't really know that the um, semicircular canal and vestibule were also running down the same track. Now there's a reading on this page of the PowerPoint, which I won't go through, but just one last reminder about the organ of Corti, and that is on the thicker, longer part, that detects low frequencies, so low sounds. The shorter one detects high frequency, so very high pitched sounds. And then, of course, we hear everything in between. So it's much like a piano. The strings of a piano, which are longer, are lower, and the strings of the piano that are shorter have a higher tone to them, higher frequency. So far, I've only been talking about this part of the inner ear, the cochlea, the hearing part of our ear. So let's move on and find out what the function of the semicircular canals are and the vestibules. We'll start with the semicircular canals. The semicircular canals are responsible for maintaining dynamic equilibrium, so helping you to maintain your equilibrium and balance as your head is moving. It does this through the mechanism of something called the cristae ampullaris. And there's one of these in each of the semicircular canals. Now think of the top part, this cupula, as almost like jelly, like jello. And as you move, this is going to move this way or that way. And as it moves, it pulls on these hairs, which sends a signal down your sensory nerves to your brain, and that helps you to maintain your equilibrium. So the cupula is very important. It just jostles back and forth in each of your semicircular canals. So if I ask you what is the organ of dynamic equilibrium, you could say the semicircular canal, but you'd also want to know that it actually works through the crista ampullaris. The last part of the inner ear I'd like to discuss is the vestibule. It's also responsible for equilibrium, but what we call static equilibrium. So basically telling your body what the position of your head is at all times. So when you're not moving. And it also has this membranous labyrinth in the vestibules called the utricle and saccule. But let's take a look at how the vestibules work. The vestibules work sort of like the ampulla, except there's more to it. So just like the ampulla, there is this kind of jelly area, and there are hairs in here which can detect movement of that jelly. But on top are these structures called otoliths. They're almost like stones. And when you move your head down, the stones move according to gravity, and that actually changes this gelatinous material. When you put your head back up, it goes the other way. So if someone says you have rocks in your head, you can say, no, they're only stones, they're otoliths. I've actually had problems with this part of my body, my vestibule, and there are ways to actually work to try to get the stones in the right place, believe it or not. It's a very big area of study because a number of people have vestibular problems where they always feel a little off balance. Okay, hope that this discussion was helpful. You want to keep in mind kind of the main function of each of these three areas, what the actual organ is that does the work, and how they relate to each other. So just as a reminder, the cochlea has the organ of Corti, which allows us to hear. And then the second one we looked at was the semicircular canals, which have the crista ampullaris, that kind of gel capsule. And that helps with dynamic equilibrium, so as we move. And then lastly, the vestibules have that macula area with the otoliths, the little stones, and that helps us with static equilibrium. I hope this was helpful and good luck with your studying.